Hello, today let's talk about memory. I'm not sure if you have seen the show Fresh Off the Boat. In the show, there's a character that has perfect 20/20 vision at the age of 40. Her name is Jessica Huang, and if you wonder how did she achieve it, here is the answer. By the way, if you haven't seen the show, it's a great family-centered comedy. And if you feel out of the place and you are also a foreigner adjusting to a new country or new culture, it is very soothing and heartwarming to watch. So how did she do it? Well, she kind of memorized the chart last night. It's not superior eyesight, it's not laser eye surgery, it's not genetic advantage. She memorized the eye chart the night before. Also, fun fact, for those in the Western countries, I know you use the Chanel chart, but I think in Asian countries, at least in China, we use a different chart. It's full of E's, the letter E, for people who are not from an English-speaking country and for people who do not know how to read. That's just a fun fact. So let's debunk. What sort of memory did Jessica use to achieve a 20/20 vision at the age of 40? So for memory, we have sensory memory, we have short-term memory, we have long-term memory. For the sensory memory, we have iconic, we have echoic, which are very short. Iconic means this vision, seeing. Echoic means hearing. Those are very short. So for iconic is 100 to 200 milliseconds. For echoic, it is 3 to 4 seconds. And for the short-term memory, it's usually 5 to 30 seconds. It also contains working memory, like sometimes we do mental math, like 1 + 1 equals, 3, 2? At least 2 in this world. And then with rehearsal, a memory technique, we may be able to translate short-term memory into long-term memory. And there are 2 types of rehearsal. Maintenance rehearsal and elaborative rehearsal. What do they mean? How do they differ? So if we look at this chart, maintenance rehearsal means EFPTOZ, EFPTOZ, and just keep repeating and repeating and repeating until you memorized it. With elaborative rehearsal, you kind of associate with new stimulus. Say, for example, for me, I would say E is egg, F is fruit, P is pineapple, or I can memorize as E as eat, fruit, pineapple, to help myself memorize it better. That's elaborative rehearsal. And then with long-term memory, long-term memory could last from minutes to a lifetime. And we have explicit memory, or we call it declarative memory. We have implicit memory, or also called non-declarative memory. And with explicit memory, we have episodic memory, and this is usually about your experiences, or how I remember is kind of like an episode of a TV show. You remember the stories, you remember the experience. For example, I remember my joy when Rafael Nadal wins French Open, regardless of which year in the past 14 trophies. And semantic memory is more about facts, like I remember Rafa Nadal, or I know Rafa Nadal is from Mallorca, Spain, and he has won 14 times of Roland Garros French Open. And then we have implicit memory, which could be further categorized into procedure memory, like riding a bike, like this cat. On my way. or like serve a tennis ball, or counterpunch during the boxing match. We also have priming, which means the exposure to one stimuli helps with the response to another one later on. One typical example would be you study for a psychology exam, say neuroscience, and then later on you perform well in your quiz. So that's priming. Habituation is, say this person is studying and let's say there is noise in the background. Maybe he lives very close to a busy street. So there's traffic noise all the time. And he kind of, after the repeated exposure to that stimuli, and he kind of just learned to ignore them and focus on studying for the psychology exam. And based on what we know about the character Jessica, he's kind of very headstrong. Imagine a person who would memorize a chart in order to not wearing glasses and prove that she has 20/20 vision. That seems to me that she kind of used maintenance rehearsal, keep repeating, to memorize the chart, or like to store the chart in her long-term memory in the form of semantic memory, because those are basically facts on a chart. Let me know if you agree with my conclusion. Just played a little bit of Sherlock Holmes here. Let me know if you enjoyed today's episode, or if you want me to cover some other topic. Leave me a comment below. I'll see you next time.